Isn't
Mhm.
it interesting to like have to kind of curate the language that way at this point?
Yeah.
Because when you're writing this type of material, you want it to get to the folks who need it,
Mhm.
right?
And yes, and you have to calibrate your own evaluations for success because at least for me, it's easy to start to think too broadly, and I really need to narrow in on, okay, who do I actually trust, to evaluate my work and determine if it's successful in the world. And yeah.
How has that process changed since your first release, This Here Flesh?
This here flesh, I feel the title was vague enough that it found itself in all kinds of hands. And I mean, there's a pretty large white readership for it, which I'm not complaining. It's money in my pocket at the end of the day. But it, I think with this book, it's different. Black is in the title and, kind of unapologetically placed there. And
Mm.
I try to be really clear from the beginning. I'm not interested in, standing at a gate to say who can enter the words and who can't. I don't have the energy for that, but I'm writing out of a Black interior life specifically.
What made you want to take on that approach with this next project?
It was a long time coming. So I'd started Black Liturgies, the social
Mhm.
media kind of like digital project in the summer of 2020. And a few weeks into that, I was getting DMs saying, can you compile these into a book? We need this to be a kind of physical thing. And I took my time in doing that. I ended up writing This Here Flesh first to kind of, introduce people to me. This Here Flesh is more about me, my family's stories, my grandma, my father, and myself. But Black Liturgies, I feel like that community specifically has been waiting for to have a kind of physical artifact that isn't
Mhm.
owned by these social media algorithms and
Yeah.
platforms that you can pick up and put down whenever you need to. And I mean, I've been in spiritual spaces um, really since college. I guess
Oh.
also growing up, my family's not religious, but in college was the first time I was in kind of organized religious spiritual spaces for the first time consistently. And I know what it is to belong to white dominated spiritual spaces and white dominated liturgies, specifically. And I just needed something different. I needed something that I felt like I could trust, something that wasn't so um, linear, something that wasn't written by a man in the 16th century who actually hated me
Yeah,
and my blackness
correct.
and my queerness.
Right. Like
Um,
like hated and fetishized at the same time.
Absolutely. And it's very difficult to kind of enter those words, as if they are to some kind of divine being or as if they are to God in a way that I can trust.
I mean, what is liturgy?
So liturgy, okay, so the most basic kind of translation of the Greek, it means work of the people or work for the people. I think of it as any kind of like structure or form of connecting with the divine or connecting with the sacred, whatever that is for you. So people typically think of like Catholic liturgy, like a mass or like an Anglican Eucharist service where you're kind of reciting these words, which is valid, but I think it transcends that. It's a kind of collective shaping of, okay, we're coming to the sacred together intentionally. This is kind of a structure for how that could look like. Um, were you raised in any kind of spiritual background or familiar with the
I
word?
mean, when you said Anglican, my mom went to Anglican high school in Grenada.
Mhm.
My grandmother was like super duper religious and was Anglican. And then when we came, growing up, my mom would have us go to like an Episcopalian church.
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't formally grow up in like the church, but I had a lot of people that had various religious practice. So like, I mean, I would be at a Baptist church with my friend Shayla. I'd be at Episcopalian church with my mom. I'd be at a Seventh-day Adventist church with my godmother.
Mhm.
So I got like I'd be at a Catholic church with Alyssa, so I got like or I'd be at a white Baptist church with Bonnie. So it was like an array of spaces that I wanted nothing to do with.
Mhm.
But but that all were filled with people that really were committed to them.
Mhm. You mentioned the Episcopal Church, and that is where I first encountered liturgy, and as a writer was like, "This is beautiful," but
Mm.
then when you do some digging into the man who wrote it, Thomas Cranmer in the 16th century, I know what was happening to my ancestors while he was
Right.
writing this book. It complicates your relationship with, sitting in a church pew. So now I think I try to, be transparent. I've been formed in Christian traditions since college, but I think of my spirituality as kind of it can't be defined by that. I think it transcends that. I'm interested in, you know, liturgy is kind of altar making. Liturgy is
Mm.
connecting with the ancestors. I think it doesn't need to look so clear,
Rigid.
so precise. Yeah, rigid. Exactly.
When we see the project on the internet, it's like sometimes you're thematic and sometimes you'll just post like, y'all need to hear this quote today, right?
Mhm.
The way that you've laid it out in the book, you have specific spaces that the language is adherent to, right? Whether it's artistry, Mother's Day, repair, etc. I love that because it makes it referenceable, right? Like you wake up, you're like, I need something for reunion. Well, Cole, all right, 274, Cole. What you got? What you got for reunion on 274? Because I got to go to my high school reunion and I don't know. Or I'm about to see my ex. I don't know. Okay, reunion. Ancestors. May we never forget the beauty of what we saw and did, and the untranslatable experience of being loved deeply and blackly. Robin Cass Lewis. But then you couple these quotes with your own language, right? Um, and what I think is so uniquely Black is that you employ things like, okay, this is going to be a call and response.
Mhm.
Like even if you're by yourself or like for a collective, like it's it's a practical piece of work for using liturgy to mold community. Well, not mold, but to bring community. Am I accurate in that
Yeah.
assessment?
Yes, definitely. And I think there's something, for me, I feel like there's something really refreshing, something healing in call and response, or it can
Yes.
be when you are positioned either as follower or as the leader of, and to practice kind of a little bit more imagination for what those roles can look like. There are times where maybe you're leading the liturgy and other people need to listen to you and center your voice, your cadence, your the rhythm of your speech. And then there are times where you have to kind of submit to being a part of a collective and being a part of the
Yes.
witness, and staying in the words that aren't, always centered around you, or grounded, or the pulse isn't always kept by you. And I think there's a lot there, for us, just the structure of call and response in kind of Black tradition of of power, and how power can function actually in really beautiful ways.
People, we are having real discussions in a real time. And you know what? It'll be real whack for you to only get this little snippet. So you can get the whole combo over there at my Patreon.
When people talk about faith, often I think, oh, it's how much belief I can muster in God any given day. And if that's the
Mm.
metric, then I'm not a person of faith, because I am a person who lacks belief. I'm just a person of more
Were
doubt.
you always?